Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab, your destination for all things spiritual, sensual, and pleasurable. Here, I explore the nuances of our human experience, connect with practitioners to support your glow up, and share my lessons and blessings as perspective to move you closer to alignment and self-empowerment. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery, and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So without further ado, let's explore. So I hit this J for a second and I'm going to see where this takes me. I'm going to say what's been sitting on my heart for a couple days. I'm in a space of gratitude. I'm in a space of happiness. I'm in a space of upgrade, upflow, glow up, if you will. And I can admit that I'm having a hard time allowing myself to be happy. A lot of it is because the shoe been dropping on me for a very long time. Things have progressed forward for me and then regressed in ways that were unimaginable and unexpected. And it felt like all that I was going through was going to be a lot longer than it needed to be. And it felt like I would never come up for air or never see the light. And I I did not know how to imagine myself on the other side. I knew how to imagine what I desired, who I desired to be, what I desired to do, how I desired to show up. I could imagine that version of myself, but the version of myself immediately outside of the space that I've been in, the transition that I've been in, I could not imagine that version of myself. And for so long, I've been in this space. And it in hindsight, maybe it's not that long, but I feel like close to 2 years is long. But I've been in and out of these spaces for 2 decades. So being in and out of these spaces for 2 decades and not having the same elongated period of being on the upside of things and having an elongated period of being on the downside of things, it makes it feel like when a glow up is happening or when things are just moving in a positive direction, if you will, it feels fleeting. And because that feeling is fleeting, my nervous system is protecting me in a specific way that is tempering how excited I get about the wonderful things that are happening to me. And I want to be in a more involved, if you will, celebratory space, but I am challenged about getting too excited because I don't know I don't know what's on the other side of that excitement, or I don't know whether or not a shoe is going to drop. So it's almost like putting the cart before the horse, or not getting too excited because everything still hasn't unfolded just yet. And I'm pretty sure that's the story that I'm telling myself. I'm pretty sure it's my nervous system trying to keep me safe. So I'm in this space of having to retrain my brain to comfortably and safely experience joy. I do not know how to be happy. I know how to be happy for people. I know how to do that. I know how to allow myself to experience moments of joy. But now we're talking about joy and happiness as an embodiment. we're talking about excitement as an embodiment, being able to naturally allow myself to flow in and out of those emotions safely and in a sacred way. That's something I do not know how to do. I know how to extend these emotions to others. I know how to be happy and joyful for the collective. I know how to be a great cheerleader and cheer other people on. But when I have to apply these actions and emotions and feelings to myself, I get nervous. Part of it feels like bragging, which is so weird because why would I not want to share my good news with my good girlfriends, my friends? Why would I not want to share that? Why would I feel like I have to piecemeal to certain people certain information or be mindful of other people's goings on because I don't want to come off whatever way I say I'm coming off? It sounds like bragging, but there are other words for that. I don't want to come off as the one that's parading around all my positivity because again, I don't know what other people are going through. And because I lead with that mindset first, it stops me from creating those joyful moments and sharing those exciting moments with people whom I love. I was having a conversation with my sister, the minister Kaylin Duvalier, who is the resident astrologer for the Muses Lab, doing our astrology talks. And she was congratulating me on the new career developments that are happening in my life. And she's having her experience, her international experience. And as she was taking the time to just congratulate me and pour love into me and share this moment with me, I attempted to incorporate what she's doing with what I'm doing, saying that we're going to ride this path together. And she had to kind of check me a little bit, not in a negative way, but like, girl, it's okay for me to congratulate you. It's okay for this to be your moment. And I had to sit with it and process it. And then that's when I realized I don't know how to be happy for myself. I don't know how to be happy for myself. I don't know how to not allow compliments and gratitude and graciousness and just love. I don't know how to receive that without trying to include somebody else in it so it doesn't feel like I'm taking the spotlight. This is so funny because in what episode is that? 15, episode 15 of this season, I'm talking about loyalty from a Leo's perspective. And because I be so loyal to people, I cut myself off from experiencing things because I feel like my brightness not is going to dim, but it's going to be consuming and everyone else doesn't get to shine, even though it's not their time to shine. It's my time to shine. And it's okay for me to shine without having to include other people because that's what I'm supposed to do. Because there's a time for collective shining, collective uplift, collective acknowledgement. There's a time for that. And then there's a time for that individual space. And because I know as a youth. I know back then people made me feel like I bragged too much or I was always bragging or talking about bigging myself up, always talking about myself, making myself the center of attention because I talked about my experiences a lot. I know now that was me trying to create space of relatability. I didn't have that language when I was like 10, 12. I didn't have that language then because nobody knew I had ADHD. But now I know that I'm not centering myself. I'm using my life as examples to show relatability and hoping that can bridge the gap in understanding or it can provide perspective. But often a lot more than often, people interpret that as me centering myself in the midst of someone else sharing their grief, their strife, whatever they're experiencing. It comes off as me centering myself. So, because I want to avoid that, I don't want people to interpret me sharing my wins or sharing perspective or sharing my story as me trying to center myself in someone else's space. I just refrain. Like, I operate in extremes. Clearly, I operate in extremes. And because I operate in extremes, I don't share things at all. So, even my closest friends, a lot of them don't know things about me because they may share ahead of that things that they're going through. And I don't want to come with all this good bragging news. And I know they're not in a great space and they're going through and they're trying to pull themselves out of a not so great space, or I don't want to say low vibrational, but they're going through a time and they're working to pull themselves out of this rabbit hole, this dark space that they're in. And I know for some people, sharing good news can be encouraging and uplifting. And I just never want to assume. So to avoid assuming, I just don't share anything at all. So what I'm learning, this is going to make sense. What I what I'm learning about being a Virgo Venus is that, or having I know some astrologers say that you are not your placement, but you have the placement. So having a Virgo Venus in my natal chart, I often have to revisit the lesson of trying to dictate how people interact with me. And when I say that, I mean, I don't want to share things because I think people are going to feel away. And that's me trying to control and dictate that interaction as opposed to just sharing it and allowing them to let me know whether that makes them feel good or not, or if that places them in a happy space. I'm not allowing them to interact with me the best way that they can. I'm dictating how they interact with me by setting boundaries with how much I share and deciding, well, I don't want to tell this person this because they're probably going to respond this way. I'm making orchestrated moves based on assumptions. No one said these things to me, but I'm making these moves based on assumptions because that's what I think. That's how I think they're going to respond. And a lot of times I'm strong and wrong. And me having this placement and having to learn to take my hands off how people respond to me and not avoid responses or try to curate a response to something that I like that gives me a dopamine rush. Ooh, I'm solving my problems out loud. Oof, wow. Oh, wow. To not curate information or moments that I share with people because I'm trying to maintain a dopamine rush that I like when people respond to me a specific way. I I'm learning I can't do that. It's not fair to the other person because they don't realize that I'm curating and I'm dictating how they navigate with me. All it just seems like from the outside looking in is that I'm being extra secretive. I'm being unnecessarily secretive. And I always create space for my friends to share what they're going through, whether it's to the detail or however they feel comfortable sharing. I always make space, but I do not allow other people to make space for me because I told myself I'm dumping and I don't want to dump. They're going through something, so I don't want to have them feel away. So I'm making decisions I'm making decisions for my friends without them even realizing I'm making decisions for them. That also feels very Mars in Cancer. And ironically, my natal Mars in Cancer and my natal Virgo and Venus are sextiles. Definitely using this energy in an adverse way. I'm not using it the way that I should be using it. But as I'm saying this aloud, I'm realizing I still have a lot of work to do as it pertains to mindset and how I'm perceiving myself and how I'm allowing myself to be perceived and getting comfortable with just being perceived. We don't particularly like it. I don't think we'll ever like it, but there is a comfort that comes with allowing yourself to be perceived in a way that you don't have to let it rock you. You can still maintain your peace even though you're being perceived. It doesn't have to be a jarring experience because being perceived is how people are experiencing you. And that's not really something that we can dictate because when we try to dictate and we try to curate, we then remove the authenticity within ourselves and shape and design this facade of an experience, a facade of a narrative that's not necessarily true to who you are. Nervous system regulation, I'm learning, is a very involved task because in this space of curation and dictation, we tell ourselves, we believe genuinely that we are doing these things to regulate our nervous system. But there's a therapist on Instagram. As I'm talking, I'm going to try to find her page. There's a therapist on Instagram that said, if you have to protect your peace, you don't have peace. That continuously has me in shambles. If you have to protect your peace, you do not have peace. And I have been sitting with that. It's been days. It's been days since I shared this. And I have been sitting with that this entire time. I've been sitting with it because what am I to do with that? We have made an entire culture on protecting our peace. Found it. Her name is Raquel, the capacity expert. And she literally says, if you have to protect your peace, you do not have it. And again, we've made a culture, we've made a movement on protecting our peace. There's merch. There's merch that says, protecting my peace. I'm going to protect my peace. I got to protect my peace. And when she said that, it paused me because if I'm protecting it, that means I'm managing it. There's another therapist, her name escapes me, but she talks about chronic stress. That in order for us to get rid of chronic stress, we have to get rid of things in our lives. We can't manage chronic stress. And here's another therapist talking about, well, we can't manage peace. Like that's management. It's not embodiment. And that it seems to be embodiment is the cheat code for this version of the timeline. We have to be in a space of embodiment. And if I'm not embodying peace, now I'm just managing how I experience peace. My gosh. I'm managing how I'm experiencing peace instead of being peace embodied. Because if I'm peace embodied, it doesn't matter what chaos is around me, I'm always at peace. I can always bring myself back into peace. My nervous system responds well to peace because I'm peace embodied. And that's how I feel about happiness. I'm not actually happy. I'm managing happy moments. I'm managing joyous moments. And because I'm managing, my nervous system doesn't quite respond to happiness and joy the way it should because I'm not joy embodied. I'm not happy embodied. I'm not peace embodied either. I'm not embodying these more positive, air quotes, emotions because all I know how to do is manage and curate these moments. So, because of that, when my spirit tries to guide me to embracing and embodying and accepting these elevated notes of pleasure, joy, and happiness, my nervous system is losing because it's like, what is this? What is this feeling? This doesn't come often. This isn't normal. Like, happiness isn't normal for me. For most people, it is. Happiness is a normal experience. Joy is a normal experience. Being in an easeful space is a normal experience for a lot of people. But for me, that's not a normal experience. And it's not necessarily because I had this traumatic childhood. I experienced things that affected me as an adult that I am currently with a mental health care team to help me navigate those different occurrences, those moments that affected me long term. So I'm not ignoring that part of my life, but not to do a comparison Olympics, but there are many people who have had more traumatic experience, have more deeply traumatic experiences than I have. And somehow some of those people have learned to experience happiness, embrace happiness, expect it, expect happiness to come. And I believe it's because I spent so much time trying to not impress my family, but meet expectations that I created in my head and that certain family members, not my mother, certain family members impressed upon me. So a combination of these impressed upon expectations and then unrealistic expectations that I created for myself, it placed me in a position to focus on meeting these expectations and not experiencing the happiness and the joy that I could. I grew up around my maternal grandparents who are essentially workaholics, like work is their identity. And as they were in their retirement phase, my grandmother reinvented herself and found something else to do. My grandfather did not. But as they are becoming less able bodied, that thought of disability and them not being able to work, air quotes, in the fashion that they've created for themselves in their elderly in a more seasoned age, their ability to not be able to work the way that they're used to is debilitating them in ways that I don't even think they imagined they could experience. And because that's what I grew up around, work became my identity. So if I didn't meet the expectations of work, if I didn't meet my productivity metric, if I didn't have that level of excellence around my work, I didn't experience joy. I felt like I didn't deserve it. I incentivized happiness, joy, and pleasure. Those weren't feelings and emotions that I would just allow myself to naturally experience because I deserve it. I incentivized it. So when work for me was in transition, was difficult when I didn't have the financial capacity to show up the way that I wanted to, I cut happiness, joy, and pleasure from my life and told myself I didn't deserve it. So, because my nervous system has been in flight or fight mode for the last 20 years, these pockets of easefulness, of joy, of pleasure that I've experienced have in so many ways been fleeting. So as I've been transitioning out of survival mode and into a space of thriving, I've hit the thrive and I got a sneak preview of it. It's so funny because Caitlin Kaylin talks about this when she speaks of the planets transitioning into another sign. It'll give us a sneak preview of what's to come for that sign, and then it retrogrades back to the previous sign, and it stays there because there's still like cobwebs and things that we have to clear out. There's questions that we need to answer, there's things that we need to reconcile, sunset. And then as it transitions to the new constellation, now we can start to figure out how we interact with this space. So it reminds me of that because I feel like, as I'm saying this out loud, I feel like I got a sneak preview of what it's like to thrive, but there was still some old narratives, scripts, cobwebs, things that I needed to sunset, that I had to let go of in order to create a softer, more nourishing foundation for me to build myself up and thrive. And I didn't realize that's what I had been experiencing off and on for the last 20 years, but particularly in the last 17 months. I didn't realize that's what I was experiencing. And now that I'm in a position to really thrive the way that I've desired, the way that I've hoped, the way that I've dreamed, the way that I've wanted, my nervous system is like, but is it going to be like it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Is it going to be like it was 18 months where it seems good and we're moving and we're thriving and then we get cut off? Is it going to be like that? Can we confirm? Can we confirm that it's not? How do we know that it's not? I don't. And that's the space of uncertainty that places me in this position to be afraid to be happy. I'm scared to be happy because if I get happy and I let my guard down and I don't keep my head on the swivel, is the shit gonna pop me in the back of my head to wipe me? Like, I don't know. And that fear, I don't like that for myself. It's not healthy for me because I have to allow myself to be vulnerable enough to just be happy and not worry about how long I'm going to be happy, not try to dictate or control the timeline for how I'm going to be happy, experience joy, experience pleasure, to allow myself to have these moments and to embrace, as much as I talk about it, to embrace that life is an ebb and flow. And there are moments when we're on the upswing, and there are moments when we're on the downswing. And in the downswing, that's the moments, that's the time to reconcile, to take a step back, to reflect, so that once the upswing comes, we can move into action. And I know this is the time for me to move into action because I'm absolutely on an upswing. And I'm hoping that I've hit a neutral space where I can just coast. I don't know how long I'm gonna coast for, but I'm hoping that I finally hit the space where I can coast and I can stay in this lane of happiness and excitement and gratitude and pleasure and joy. I hope I can experience this because I would hate to get here and I'm only here for 17 months again, and then I'm back in survival mode. I can't physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I can't experience that again. I cannot experience being on such a high and falling into a softness and falling into ease and falling into pleasure and working, moving towards embodiment only for it to get cut off again. I don't know if I can survive that. I'm being very honest with myself. I don't know if I can survive that again. I don't know if I have the spoons to navigate that. So I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm wishing, I'm pleading that as I work to embrace being happy for myself, being excited for myself, being ecstatic for myself, being joyous for myself, as pleasure is opening up for me in ways that I've only imagined. I I hope that I stay here. I hope that I stay here. I want to stay here. I desire to stay here. I deserve to stay here. I deserve to be peace embodied. I deserve to be joy embodied. I deserve to be happy embodied. I deserve to be pleasure embodied. So, for any of you who are challenged with allowing yourself to be happy, of course, the goal is to always get to the root, get to the why. But also think about what Rachel, the capacity expert, said about managing your peace. You have to decide, just like I'm deciding, if you're gonna be a peace manager, just managing peace. Are you gonna be a peace manager, or are you going to be peace embodied? Are you gonna move towards embodiment and minimize? I want to say stop, but I want to also be realistic and say minimize how much you are managing emotions that you need to embody. Like energy management is a thing. I don't care what nobody says. Energy management is a thing. You have to manage your own energy. That's active. That's an active space that you have to be cognizant of on a consistent basis. You have to manage your own energy because people like to project and transfer emotions and things. And if you are not an active participant in your own energy management, you will allow things to attach onto you and then wonder why your spirit feels low, your body feels low, your cognition is low, and you can't see, it feels dark. It's because you have all this muck and mire of other people's aura and energetic codes that have been impressed upon you, and you don't cleanse, and you don't manage, and you don't put up proper guardrails, spiritual guardrails to prevent those things from leaching onto you and sticking onto you, right? So energy management is a thing. But now when I think about managing my peace, that don't sound right. Managing my happiness don't sound right, because why am I managing that? Why can't I just allow that to be? Why can't I allow myself to exist in peace, to exist in happiness, to exist in joy, to exist in pleasure, to exist in gratitude? Why can't I allow myself to just exist? Because the existence is what leads us to embodiment. If we're too busy managing, we're now intellectualizing these emotions, and we're orchestrating how we experience it. And we orchestrate what comes in and what comes out, as opposed to just being embodied and not even worried about the things that are out of our control or don't even belong to us, or is none of our business. Because everybody's chaos is not our business. Unless it affects you directly, no one else's chaos is our business. I think that is a core value of being peace embodied. Yeah. So I hope this is helpful. It was definitely helpful for me to talk this out. This was definitely helpful for me to talk this out. So I hope this is helpful for someone, and if it resonates for you as it pertains to someone you know, please share. Please feel free to share. If you're on Spotify, the comments are on. I don't know how to get comments on Apple. I don't think Apple Podcasts allows for comments, but comments are on YouTube, comments are on Spotify. And regardless, if you want to tell me something, you can email me at hello at the muses, don't forget the S, the museslab.com, and you can chat with me. Or if you follow me on Instagram, send me a DM. If you follow me on Threads, tag me. I don't know about TikTok. I'll be monitoring my DMs there. But if you're on those platforms, if you're on Threads, bare minimum Threads, Instagram, or you comment on YouTube, holler at me. Let me know what you think, how you feel. How did this resonate with you? Is this something that you also need to work on? Or if you have tips and you would like to share with the community, you can do that too. Thank you all for tapping into the Muses Lab podcast. Until we meet again.